Hello, hello,
You have joined the call. There are two other people in the call. Your camera is off. Your microphone is off. Your hand.
hello, hello,
It's Baldy. Your microphone is off.
hello, hello. Morning, Revu. Good afternoon.
नमस्कार सर.
Namaskar, namaskar.
Right there outside it. You right there. No.
ଭଲ ଅଛନ୍ତି ସାର୍?
ହଁ ଠିକ ଠାକ ଆଉ ଆପଣ ଭଲ ଅଛନ୍ତି?
ହଁ ସାର୍ ଭଲ ଅଛି ସାର୍.
ଆଚ୍ଛା ଆମେ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରିବା କି ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ମିନିଟ
ହଁ
ଅପେକ୍ଷା
ସାର୍
କରିବା?
ଆରମ୍ଭ କରନ୍ତୁ ସାର୍.
ଆଚ୍ଛା ଓକେ ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ ଓକେ ଓକେ good afternoon all dear participants. Hi all. Today we shall discuss today we shall begin with the a more or less detailed discussion about 73rd and 74th amendment, constitutional amendment. You know, repeatedly we have actually referred to this 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment act because they're the most vital instruments in revamping the system, in making necessary changes, modifications in the Panchayat Raj institutions and also in the urban local self-governance bodies. It was during the Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, and once in one workshop on responsive administration in 1988, he said that if our district administration is not sufficiently responsive, the basic reason is that it is not only sufficiently representative, and with the decay of Panchayat Raj institutions, the administration has got isolated from the people, thus dulling its sensitivity to the needs of the people. This 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act 1992, it came into force actually in April 1993. It was passed in 92, but from 24th April 1993 it was effective. And definitely this is a very significant achievement. No one can contest this. The basic question arises as to what was the basic spirit behind this legislation. ई प्रकार संविधान संशोधन करिवार कौन आवश्यकता थिला? What was the need? What was the urgency? The emphasis has been so far on former which was made panchayats only mere implementing agencies. आगुरु पंचायत सिस्टम टाकू केवल सेंटर एवं स्टेट रो गोटे इम्प्लीमेंटिंग एजेंसी हिसाब रे ग्रहण कराइतला. Whatever decides at the state level or by the state legislature or in the parliament in the union level, those are all implemented by the panchayats. So it was more or less on implementing organization. Actually, it has no vital role in decision making. The basic objective of democratic decentralization was that through reactivating or modifying this Panchayat Raj system, महात्मा गांधी ने जो concept पढ़ते स्वराज, self rule, निजे निजे को शासन करिबा, it was to be fulfilled. You know, previously, local administration naturally was put under the control and supervision of the state governments, which are also more or less under the supervision of the center. So, the 64th and 65th Amendment bills could not sail through the parliament because of the opposition from the Rajya Sabha. And the institutionalization of democratic decentralization in form of statutory PRIs thus opened up the new chapters in the history of India. And they have given a new turn to the self-government institutions. Self-government, the very term was interpreted two ways. Firstly, the constitution says that the panchayats are institutions of self-governance, implying that they must have autonomy and the power to govern in an exclusive area of jurisdiction. So in its essential element, the 73rd constitutional amendments gives panchayat this distinct status as an autonomous body. So in fact, de facto, it became the third tier of the government. And secondly, this arrangement also helped in furthering administrative federalism. Professor S. Guhan, he argued that the provisions of the 73rd Amendment strengthen administrative federalism in order to facilitate and encourage delegation of administrative and financial powers from the states to the local bodies. Their administrative powers and to discharge their responsibilities, they are entirely derived from legislation that will have to be passed by the states. So let us discuss. Now this is more or less the importance of the 73rd Amendment. Actually, many amendments that have been taken up at various points of time, but some of them are most vital because they pertain to the powers of the people, the participation of the people in decision-making process. Immediately after Part 8 of the Constitution and after the 10th schedule of the Constitution, Part 9 was inserted with this amendment, 73rd Amendment. Part 9 was inserted immediately after Part 8 and also the 10th schedule. So, with the passing of this Amendment Act, 11th schedule was added. I last discussion discuss karithile. 11th schedule was added. Article 243G, which gives the detailed list of functions to be performed by PRIs. एथरे गोटे डिटेल्ड शेड्यूल एक्चुअली रखा गला जे कहा ऊपर PRIs माने लेजिस्लेशन करि परिबे. You know, panchayat shall be constituted in every state at the village level and also in intermediate level and also district levels. जोटा कि हमें ग्राम पंचायत, पंचायत समिति एंड जिला परिषद बोली कहूँ. तीनटा लेवल रे तीनटा त्रिस्तरीय पंचायत राज व्यवस्था है जोटा कि हमें अल्प बहुत हम समस्त के साथ आइडिया अछि किंतु here we shall find what are the detailed provisions. So immediately after the 10th schedule गोटे नुआ शेड्यूल जोखा गला 11th schedule. Schedule means जो परिच्छेद एवं सेतरे किछि आइटम्स मध्ये इंक्लूड करी रखा गला जहां ऊपर की this local bodies, rural local bodies, they can also make laws. But one thing is that the states having a population of more than 20 lakhs, they have been given the option of not having any panchayats at the intermediate level. जोटा हम पंचायत समिति द्वारा हम कहूचे तेणु से प्रकार ऑप्शन स्टेट मान को दिया गला जे 20 लाख रु ऊर्ध्व जनसंख्या थिबा स्टेट माने इंटरमीडिएट लेवल ले लोकल बॉडीज रखि पारिबे बा न रखि पारिबे से प्रकार सेमान को ऑप्शन दिया. Then regarding election to this particular bodies, while the elections in respect of all the members to panchayats at the level will be direct, the election in respect of the post of chairman at the intermediate and the district level will be indirect. And the mode of election of the chairman to the village level have been left to the state governments to decide. So intermediate and district level chairman, there shall be a provision of indirect election, but the mode of election to the chairman of the village level shall be decided by the state governments concerned. And all the members, including the chairperson, shall have the right to vote. Then regarding reservation of seats for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. It has been provided in proportion to their population at each level and not less than 1/3 of the total membership has been reserved for women. 73rd Amendment Act, this is one of the most notable features. Reservation for the deprived sections of the society like SCs, STs and women. And these seats may be allotted by rotation to different constituencies in a panchayat. Similar reservations also have been made in respect of the office of the chairperson. Then uniform term of 5 years have been provided for Panchayat Raj institutions. And in the event of dissolution or supersession, dissolution summary by supersession summary, sometimes, by government act, this can be superseded and all that. Election to constitute the body should be completed before the expiry of 6 months. So, jodi se local body ta dissolve hoigala kimba supersede hoigala, se event of 6 months before the expiry of 6 months from the date of dissolution, election should be held to constitute a press body. So, panchayat constituted upon dissolution may continue for the remainder of the period. धरतु गोटे period of 5 years में गोटे body elected ହେଇଛି. For some reason it has been superseded or dissolved. So the next new body which is constituted shall continue only for the remainder of the period. धरतु 2 वर्ष अछि कि 3 वर्ष अछि, only for that period it shall function. Then, with a view to ensuring continuity, it has been provided in the Act that all the panchayats existing immediately before the commencement of this Amendment Act will continue till the expiry of their duration, unless dissolved by a resolution to that effect passed by the state legislature. And there is also a very important provision. On the Bhartan election challenge. Usually, Election Commission of India is conducting these elections of MLAs and MPs. But for the election to the local bodies, there shall be a state election commission. So, there shall be an election commission for the conduct of all elections to the panchayat consisting of a state election commissioner, which is to be appointed by the state government. And state government, the state election commission constitute karibo. Amara election commission of India jota national level achi, it shall not be involved in this process. It shall not conduct this election to the local bodies, urban bodies or rural bodies like panchayat, PRAs and all that. And the state government shall constitute the state election commission to conduct, supervise and control the process of election, like preparation of electoral rolls and other things. Then the state legislature, they have been given the power to authorize the panchayats to levy, to collect and appropriate suitable local taxes. and also provide for making grants in aid to the panchayats from the consolidated fund of the concerned state. So you see, I have already told you that unless there is a financial stability, it shall be difficult on the part of these bodies to function. That is why how to raise these funds, what are the items on which these local bodies can impose taxes, levy taxes, that also shall be finalized by the state legislature. And also the provision of grant in aid, जोटा कि consolidated fund, जोटा कि state under रे अछि. The consolidated fund of the concerned state shall provide for the grant in aid to those local bodies. And there is another important provision that a state finance commission has to be constituted. Once every 5 years. Emergency union level finance commission अच्छी है, state level of finance commission constitute होगा प्रत्येक 5 वर्ष में to review the financial position of the panchayat and to make suitable recommendations to the governor as to the principles which should govern the distribution between the state and the panchayats of revenue. Regarding the distribution of taxes, the net proceeds of the taxes, duties, tolls, or fees which are leviable by the state. And the 73rd Amendment Act also added a subclause to Article 280 of the Constitution. And according to this subclause, the Central Finance Commission, in addition to other stipulated duties, shall also make recommendations to the President regarding the measures needed to augment the then consolidated fund of the state to supplement the resources of the panchayats in the state. And that is to be done on the basis of the recommendations made by the Finance Commission of the state. So this is added provision. On the recommendation of the Finance Commission of the state, the Central Finance Commission, जोटा कि Article 280 द्वारा बलवत्तर होकर रही, it shall also make these particular arrangements, that it shall also recommend certain things to the President of India. And please remember, this recommendation shall be on the basis of the recommendation given by the State Finance Commission. Then also, the state legislature should bring in necessary amendments to their panchayat acts within a maximum period of 1 year from the commencement of this Amendment Act. The 73rd Amendment Act from maximum 1 year ଭିତରେ ସେମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ତାଙ୍କର ପଞ୍ଚାୟତ ଆକ୍ଟ ଗୁଡାକରେ necessary ସଂଶୋଧନ ଆଣିପାରିବେ to make those local bodies more effective. But all these changes must conform to the provisions of the Constitution. କିନ୍ତୁ ସବୁଗୁଡ଼ିକ ସମ୍ବିଧାନର ପ୍ରୋଭିଜନର କନଫର୍ମିଟିରେ ହେବା ଆବଶ୍ୟକ. These are certain features. ଯେ କ'ଣ କ'ଣ important provision 73rd Amendment Act ରହିଲା. There are also certain observations. We can say these are certain critical observations to make it more effective, or say what are the weak points in this particular provisions of this Amendment Act and all that. Some scholars, they have observed that this 73rd Amendment Act, it only provided the general guidance for the effective and efficient working of the Panchayat Raj system. For example, it has granted the PRI's constitutional status. Then also some sort of uniformity by making three-tier system a permanent feature, and also to maintain regularity by making the elections an imperative after the termination of the PRIs after every 5 years, so that the continuity can be maintained. Then also it has provided for the provisions of the State Election Commission to conduct and supervise the elections and all that. So, but one thing is that the most debated problem till recently was giving constitutional recognition to the Panchayat Raj institutions. Some scholars have observed that the founding fathers of the Constitution gave only lip service to democratic decentralization by mentioning about it in Article 40. Article 40 is Chapter 4, Directive Principles of State Policy. And you know, the provisions are non-enforceable by court of law. So, some scholars say that only initially in the Constitution, they have been only given a lip service. But after the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, the Panchayat Raj institutions have got constitutional legitimacy. Of course, this is a pertinent observation. It means it highlights the importance of this particular act. Prior to the existence of this act, democratic decentralization or local governance institutions, they have been only given lip service, superficial attention, because the mention about these institutions was made only in Chapter 4, that is Directive Principles of State Policy. And you know that is a non-enforceable chapter. And also, there is a strong body of opinion that in order to give an air of finality to the scheme, a separate list, namely the Panchayat list, could have been included in the 7th schedule, which lists subjects for legislation into the union, state and concurrent list. So in some of the opinion, धरतु लेजिस्लेटिव रिलेशनशिप पढ़ेला बेले देखुचे यूनियन लिस्ट, स्टेट लिस्ट, कंकरेंट लिस्ट करा गला, से समय मध्ये गोटे पंचायत लिस्ट मध्ये करा कुड हैव बीन डन, जोथर के मध्ये किछि किछि सब्जेक्ट्स दिया जाय पारथान. दैट वाज द ऑब्जर्वेशन बाय स्कॉलर्स दैट द ओरिजिनल अरेंजमेंट could have been made. Then, so you know, this is the first observation, very important, that a constitutional legitimacy has been granted after the passing of the 73rd Amendment Act. Then also, they have been given exclusive items on which, the Panchayat Raj institutions also can make law. Then another important observation is the present 73rd Amendment, it does address the issue of uniformity of structure across the country. but leaves certain important matters such as size of the panchayat at a level to the discretion of the state governments. ତେଣୁ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରକ୍ଚର ୟୁନିଫର୍ମିଟିଟା ପ୍ରାୟ ଏଥିରେ ସଜେଷ୍ଟ ହେଲା, ପ୍ରାୟ ସବୁ ଷ୍ଟେଟ୍ରେ ସମାନ ଟାଇପ୍ର ରହିଲା। But regarding the size of these local bodies, they have left it to the state governments. So virtually that was left to the discretion of the state governments. They shall decide. Then another observation regarding this is the PRIs by and large had failed because of irregular elections and frequent supersession and suspension. Most of the critics they have observed that अनेक समय PRI गुड़ाक से स्टेट गवर्नमेंट सुपरसीड कर जाउछ बा ताको सस्पेंड कर दिया होछ। The chronic problem was rightly been taken care of by the recent amendment. When a amendment of Purburu, it has become a chronic problem. That state governments, they have been tempted to supersede it. They are tempted to suspend it. Kintu 73rd Amendment Act asla pore, this chronic problem was addressed to a great extent. You know, court interventions, it has been necessary, as for example, in the case of Odisha and Uttar Pradesh to secure compliance. Courts also had to intervene to ensure compliance with the reservation clause in Punjab and Uttar Pradesh. So, somewhat this problem was addressed to a great extent after the passing of this 73rd Amendment Act. Then, the Gram Sabha is an institution which provides an opportunity to participate meaningfully in governance. And 73rd Amendment Act makes the establishment of Gram Sabha more or less mandatory. किंतु एतिकी जे ग्राम सभार जुरिस्डिक्शन बा तांकर पावर्स केते क्षमता तांको दिया जीवो सेटा स्टेट गवर्नमेंट मान को छाड़ी दिया जायछि। That is why Gram Sabhas, they differ so far as jurisdiction and powers are concerned. Many state legislation assigned to Gram Sabha a ceremonial and token role. अनेक स्टेट गवर्नमेंट कौन कर ग्राम सभा को सुपरफिशियल रोल दे देइछन्ती, सेरेमोनियल रोल्स, फॉर एग्जांपल एंडोर्सिंग प्रपोजल्स, मेकिंग recommendations, considering the annual accounts, reviewing the development plans, but also there are some other important functions which have included and given to them by other states, like promoting harmony, unity in the village, mobilizing voluntary labor, contributions in cash or kind, rendering assistance to the implementation of the development schemes. Likewise, then another observation is regarding the problem which relates to the functioning of the local bodies, which has been a particular area where more or less there is a cold relationship rather. Sometimes they cooperate, sometimes they do not, like a love-hate relationship between the bureaucracies and the local leadership, political leadership. Because the local level bureaucracy among elected representatives at that particular level, their roles have not been clearly defined. So, because of this lack of a defined or demarcated role and function, the working relationship is rather falling short of a harmony. And it has become in most of the states one of the causes of the failure of the Panchayat Raj institutions. But this relationship between the political leadership or the representatives and the bureaucracy would be vital in the working or the details of the devolution of power and functions. And if such cooperation were not forthcoming, implementation of the programs and policies would run into roadblocks, making the idea of local self-government a futile exercise. Hence, you know, cooperation and commitment are the necessary values that must go with this functioning of these institutions. Significantly, devolution is an executive process, which means that the statutory provisions they need detailing in terms of administrative rules and procedures. You know, Also some other important observations on the working of the PRIs during last 3 to 4 decades. They have been the status of Panchayat Samitis and Jilla Parishads, and also the inadequacy of the finance, the fund which have been kept under their disposal. And that is the reason that there is a lack of involvement of the PRIs. If there is a lack of financial stability, naturally it shall lead to what? The lack of involvement. The amendment has tried to take care of these problems by bringing them into the statute book. However, certain problems have persisted. For example, there has been a general reluctance to concede political space to the underprivileged in panchayats, the marginalized sections in the panchayats. some of the scholars also, they have observation. Scholars as mentioned in the texts, Palanithurai, Raghupati, according to their observation, democratic decentralization follows the new public management principle. आपने public आइडिया पढ़ी new NPM, new public management. Because the NPM mostly, for example, emphasizes on the improvement of the service delivery by invoking demand through institutions like the district planning committee, the Gram Sabha, and there is a paradigm shift from macro to micro concerns in planning. And the scholars observe that development paradigm suffered either due to an overemphasis on macro concerns. Democratic decentralization would counter this tendency by encouraging interest articulation on the part of the underprivileged and unequally pressed at the local levels. So also, emphasis equally must be given to micro concerns. By institutionalization of people's participation in administration, the state has created an alternate service delivery mechanism to the bureaucracy, which is set to further shrink in the coming days. Because process of liberalization is gathering momentum. So the timing of 1991, because after 90s this process of liberalization starts. The trade and industrial policy reforms coincides roughly with the initiative for democratic decentralization. And trade and industrial policy reforms, they were initiated due to the economic crisis owing primarily to the fiscal management, endemic inefficiency, corruption. So, even though the idea of local governance reforms, it was conceptualized sometime later. Consensus emerged soon as the failure of the Indian developmental state is in terms of human development and poverty alleviation was ubiquitous. It prevails everywhere. So now we shall find the aim was to reconfigure the structure of governments. In this particular framework of this 73rd Amendment Act and all that, there are also few limitations, very visible limitations. Because the 29 subjects which are kept under 11th schedule, because with this Amendment Act, 11th schedule was added. But these 29 subjects, they do not give power to legislate to the local bodies to take the decision. The State Finance Commission recommendations are not mandatory in nature. It is completely up to the state governments to devolve and not to devolve the functions. The so the 29 items are handled by different ministries and are not in the hands of the Minister of Panchayat Raj and Rural Development Coordination. And references also can be made to the discretionary provisions. Because these provisions, they leave a lot to the free will of the state governments. There are in certain cases issues, significant issues, like nomenclatures of panchayats. Some critical matters also have been made discretionary. ଅନେକ ଜାଗାରେ କେବଳ nomenclature ଚେଞ୍ଜ କରିବାଟା ଗୋଟେ superficial ଜିନିଷ ହେଇପାରେ, ସେଥିରେ discretion ଦିଆଯାଇଛି state government କୁ, but also in sometimes some critical matters besides the nomenclature, they have been also kept under the discretion of the state governments, like determination of the size in terms of population, mode of election of chairperson, powers and function of the Gram Sabha, devolution of power and authority to institutions of self-governance, etc. That means discretionary powers also have been granted in these important areas. So side by side with the nomenclature also, these important areas, they have been kept under the discretionary powers of the state governments. We can just take, for example, some of the important discretionary powers. Nomenclature of panchayats and chairperson, size in terms of population and area covered for villages and intermediate levels. Then the composition of panchayats, representations of the chairperson at a level in the next successive higher levels, MPs and MLAs. Then powers and functions of Gram Sabha. So these are the certain areas where discretions have been granted. Then also devolution of power and function to panchayats at the appropriate level with respect to preparation of plans for economic development. Then matters like deciding what taxes and duties, tolls would be levied by the panchayats. Then also discretionary authority has been granted to the states to decide the amount of grant in aid that should be provided to the panchayats. You see, these are the very important areas, because just imagine if the state government shall squeeze this amount, there's a granted aid, the size of the granted aid, it shall be very difficult on the part of the local bodies to function. Then to authorize the panchayats at all different levels to create a fund for crediting all the money received thereto and withdrawals therein. Then to provide for the composition of the Finance Commission, the qualifications requisite for the members, manner of their selection, powers, their functions. Then another area of discussion is to make provisions with respect to the maintenance of accounts by the panchayats and the auditing of such accounts. Then to determine the conditions of service and tenure of office of the State Election Commission, to make provisions regarding all matters in connection with election to the panchayats. Then regarding making provisions with respect to the composition and function of district planning committee and the manner in which the post of chairperson of this district planning committee shall be filled. Then provisions regarding panchayats or any law relating to panchayats in existence before the amendment, continuing if not dissolved. So these are some of the features and some of the observations on 73rd Amendment. Similarly, we can also talk a little about the features of 74th Amendment Act. You know, I have already told you that the 74th Amendment Act lays down the structure of the urban local bodies, provides for the regular, free and fair elections. Then the provision regarding SC, STs and women, reservation of seats for them. Almost similar provisions. Jota ki rural local bodies pe madhe karayi 74th Amendment, more or less the same provisions they have been made for the urban local bodies. You know, the 74th Amendment also was passed and came into force from 1st June 1993. So from 1st June 1993, 74th Amendment Act came into force. And you know, two important committees. One is Committee for District Planning and Committee for Metropolitan Planning. These are the two important committees they have been constituted. District Planning and Metropolitan Planning. That is Article 243. These committees were formed. And you know, what can be the features of this urban amendment, that is 74th Amendment Act for the urban bodies? Constitutional status has been accorded. Like Panchayat Raj system, also three-tier structures they have been envisaged. For the larger areas, municipal councils, you know, municipal corporation for large areas. For smaller areas, Nagar Panchayats, villages, towns, and you know, more or less in our state, but particularly notified area councils, municipalities, and municipal corporations. For the bigger cities, corporations, then middle-tier cities, municipalities, then also NSCs. Direct election to these municipal bodies by the people had to be conducted in the manner as the elections are held for Lok Sabha and state assemblies. But you know, For the purpose of election, of municipal elections, they are to be conducted by the State Election Commission. ଯେମିତି ଆମର MLA MP election ଅଛି ସେଇପରି ହବ କିନ୍ତୁ ତାକୁ State Election Commission conduct କରିବ. Election Commission of India will not conduct those elections. Then the reservation of 1/3 of seats for women, including women belonging to SC and ST. State Finance Commission would ensure financial viability of the municipalities. Municipal funds have been augmented through taxes, tolls, and duties. Then urban municipal institutions of self-government, they have been endowed with power and authority to formulate and implement schemes for economic development and social justice. Then, as I have told you, two important committees are to be formed: the Metropolitan Planning Committee and also DPC, that is Committee for District Planning. District Planning Committee, Metropolitan Planning Committee constitute କରାଯିବ. And also to ensure better proximity with the people, ward committees have to be formed. So, like 73rd Amendment Act, also there are few observations on that. You know, the Nagarpalika central legislation, it has scattered spatially hundreds of small local governments throughout India. Governments with their respective territorial jurisdiction, they've been formed. So, some people term it as a federation of federations. India is a federation. But when these local units they have been created, these are also smaller federations. So India thus becomes a federation of federations. The 74th Constitutional Amendment Act has not only constitutionalized the status of urban local bodies, but also improved its life, structure, its working, and also finance. But regarding its function or constitution, regarding their structure, there are also certain questions to which there is no satisfactory answer. The first and foremost is the very exercise of classifying an area, rural or urban, is a confused one. ଏବେ ମଧ୍ୟ କୋଉ ଏରିଆକୁ ଆମେ ରୁରାଲ କହିବା କୋଉଟାକୁ ଅର୍ବାନ କହିବା ତା ଉପରେ ଗୋଟେ ଅବଜେକ୍ଟିଭଲି ଗୋଟେ କ୍ଲାସିଫିକେସନ ଏପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ କରାଯାଇ ପାରି ନାହିଁ. Some of the states with larger concentration of non-municipal activities like Gujarat, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and West Bengal, they have nearly 2/3 of the towns as census or non-municipal towns. And in spite of the predominance of the non-agricultural activities in those towns, they are not accorded the municipal status. Mostly I mean rural बेसना को agricultural sector पर बेसी emphasis दिया जाए. But also it is found that in most of the areas, even though there is a predominance of the non-agricultural sector or activity, they have not been accorded municipal status. So that means what is to be termed a rural area and what is to be termed one urban area, still there is confusion. There is no objective classification. The state governments are interested in retaining their panchayat status as they fetch grants under rural development schemes. Anek states they are interested to maintain most of the regions under this rural status, because many rural development schemes are being floated. So the more number of rural areas you have, naturally there shall be more of funding for you. You can avail of those particular assistance and all that. So their classification as urban would require the government in turn to give them grants. Then 74th Amendment Act asla pore, first time district planning committees under Article 243Z, they have got constitutional status. Here we must mention that Planning Commission is an extra constitutional body. And even then, it is so powerful that every year all the state governments come begging for the Planning Commission for financial assistance, for funds. But the institution which has got constitutional status for district planning is largely ineffective. Then as per the official documents, the role set out for the urban local bodies in the intermediate future will be to be responsive and accountable to the community, to develop cities with standards of service comparable to the best in the particular category, and to constantly improve their capabilities so as to equip themselves to undertake their tasks in resource raising, service provision, and poverty alleviation. So the 74th Amendment Act provides for the Constitution by every state for a state finance commission within 1 year of the amendment, and thereafter every 5 years regarding the financial resources of the local bodies. But unfortunately, the recommendation of the commission are not binding on the respective states. So, in spite of the fact that 74th Amendment visualizes the people's participation as one of the main objectives, the people's actual participation in the municipal affairs of the city is still limited. Both in the 73rd Amendment Act and 74th Amendment Act, space ray, the desired results they have not been attained. The objectives are not fulfilled. As most of the municipalities are badly governed, no private party is willing to shake hands with the municipal authorities. Private parties also think that to push their project through the municipal authority is really time consuming and wasteful. Lot of effort would need to be put in the change this attitude perception of the municipalities. And in this context, many people feel, many scholars feel that the training of the municipal authorities, the personnel, or say the executive or the bureaucracy engaged in this municipal level, has to be taken up in the right earnest to develop requisite managerial capabilities and sufficient orient kariya darkar. Trainings must be arranged for the municipal personnel to increase their capabilities. So work is performed on the basis of sound managerial principle. There must be emphasis on decentralized planning. Efforts to establish suitable planning machinery at the local levels have been half-hearted. The planning machinery at the district level was weak, both in terms of its technical expertise and also in terms of the financial resources. And all the committees prior to the 73rd and 74th Amendment advocated decentralized planning. So, all these efforts culminated into the presentation of two bills, that is 64th and 65th Constitutional Amendment bills in the Parliament in the election year of 1989 for providing constitutional status to the local government institutions in the rural and urban areas. But these two bills, though crucial steps towards decentralized planning, were passed by Lok Sabha but fell in Rajya Sabha due to want of majority. ସେଥିପାଇଁ 64th और 65th bill रे in local self government ର ମଧ୍ୟ ଯଥେଷ୍ଟ provision ଥାଇ ମଧ୍ୟ 1989 ରେ these bills could not be passed. Those are passed in Lok Sabha, but they could not gather the support of Rajya Sabha. Then, we can go for, not in detail, functioning of this Panchayat Raj institutions in various states after 73rd Amendment. Like Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Gujarat, Haryana, Karnataka, Kerala, Punjab, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Maharashtra. You can have some idea of the functioning of this PRIs after this act is passed. Some observations have been made, like assets, they have been created under the various rural development programs, but the assets were not utilized properly. Then it was found that the beneficiaries for rural development programs are not selected in proper manner. So far as the meetings of the Panchayat Raj institutions are concerned, it is found regular. But meeting of Gram Sabha in all the three districts were not held regularly. Accordingly, the provisions, or the very objective is not fulfilled. You know, according to the new act, 29 items have been placed under panchayats. ଯାହା ଉପରେ ସେମାନେ legislate କରିପାରିବେ, ଯୋଉଟା କି ମୁଁ କହିଥିଲି 11th schedule was added. But it has been noted that very few of these subjects have been transferred to the panchayats, and they are neither substantial nor meaningful. They are only supervisory in nature. Then, regard to, or so far as urban side is concerned, for example, the district planning committee, its functioning, it was found that most of the beneficiaries, people's representatives, and even some of the officials, they are not aware of the constitution, composition, and structure of the DPC. Very strange. It was also found that still MPs and MLAs are controlling the PRIs. They get development work done in that area. As such, the needy and the remote village, they get neglected. So, due to the dominance of the MLAs and MPs and BDO, come Panchayat Raj officers, and also their subordinate staffs, those who are virtually dominating over, even upon the articulate representatives of the Gram Panchayats. So, the ethos of democracy can find real nourishment only when power reaches the grassroots. ଆମର ଏଇ ସବୁ ଚାପ୍ଟର ପଢିବାର ଅର୍ଥ କ'ଣ? So, while 73rd and 74th amendments, they have come to be implemented. The most revolutionary measure, definitely in the recent years, they have been the passing of these particular acts, amendments. So, if those amendment acts only can be successfully implemented, then only we can think in terms of a successful democracy. Regarding organizational structure of the rural local bodies, these things, easy to understand that the rural side local bodies गुड़ाक केमती structured होइछन्ती. They are organizational structures. Actually, in India, our panchayat raj system is very old. In ancient India, also the village formed the basic unit of social and economic life. More or less, we Indians are very much associated with this village organizations from time immemorial. But the 18th century revolution in England, it has brought far-reaching changes in Great Britain in different fields: agriculture, transport, industry. And those changes in Britain subsequently affected the economy of the country. And the village suffered the most. The village organization as a self-sufficient unit, which was the characteristic feature of the old Indian economy, it disappeared. Our handicrafts and the manufactured items, they are ruined gradually. So, British because they have dominated us starting from the 18th century, they have ruined our village culture. The villagers became gradually, became conservative, shrewd, the condition of the rural masses from the physical, economic, social, and educational points of view became gradually unsatisfactory. They were the victims of lethargy. So that was a period immediately after the British dominance. But after Gandhi came, after he spearheaded he led the freedom movement and all that. Gandhiji drew the picture of a free India's political structure in the words, Indian independence must begin at the bottom. Every village should be a republic or a panchayat having full powers. The greater the power of panchayats, the better for the people. ତାଙ୍କର ସେ ଯୋଉଟା ଏଡିଟ୍ କରୁଥିଲେ ହରିଜନ ବୋଲି ଗୋଟେ ପତ୍ରିକାରେ, this is the statement. Swaraj signified to him the vesting of the ultimate authority in the peasants and in the laborers. Gandhiji political movement by independence movement leadership nela pore, he has emphasized on Swaraj and also revamping, restructuring the village institutions, the rural institutions. So, true democracy can be worked out by 20 men sitting at the center. So, if we try to work out democracy, it cannot be done so. It cannot be worked out just by 20 men sitting together at the center. It has to be worked from below by people of every village. Centralized bhavre कोटी लोक बसीगले डिसीजन हो पारिबनी. It must come below, from below. So report on the organization of local self institutions in relation to planned social and economic development in India emphasized in 1951 after we got independence that a democratic government at the center can never function satisfactorily unless it is supported by democratic organization of local administration. So if we think in terms of a democratic government at the center, one must think about the democratic organization of the local administration and basically village administration, because India lives in villages. So democratic government will never be secure unless it is so supported. So the first 5-year plan pointed out that the constitution has provided for democratic institutions at the center and in the states. But so long as local self-governing institutions are not conceived as of the same organic institutional or administrative framework, the structure of democratic government will remain incomplete. Second 5-year plan, recommended that village panchayats should be organically linked with popular organizations at a higher level, and that by the state determined in advance, democratic bodies should take over the entire general administration and development of the district or the subdivisions, perhaps, other than such functions as law and order, administration of justice, and certain functions pertaining to revenue administration. So this study team came to the conclusion that the block offers an area large enough to function, which the village panchayat cannot perform and it's small enough to attract the interest and the services. So the thing is that immediately after the independence, it is realized that the devolution of power is a must. Otherwise, or minus this, we cannot think of a prosperous India. Then a study team, it gave the details of the organization and function. Firstly, we should, the observation is like that of that particular study team regarding this democratic decentralization. We should have village panchayat purely on an elective basis with a provision for the co-option of 2 women members and 1 member each from the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Secondly, panchayat samiti should be formed for an area included in a block. ଆମର ଯୋଉ ତିନିଟା ଷ୍ଟାର ଯୋଉଟା ପଢିଥିଲେ ସେଇ ପ୍ରକାର recommendation study team ଦେଇଥିଲେ. Thirdly, it was proposed by the team that there should be Jilla Parishad. So the recommendation of the study team in favor of a system of democratic decentralization, it was considered by NDC, National Development Council, in 1958. So in this way, I've already referred also how this Balwant Rai Mehta Committee also was instituted in 1957. Panchayat Raj is a 3-tier system for rural governance. And this Panchayat Raj provides a valuable training ground for further leadership also, that helps in, as we know, political recruitment. Village level leadership was recruited. Because this type of arrangement, like PRI's, Public Panchayat Raj institution, enables the majority of citizens to associate themselves in public affairs. Local bodies have been rightly regarded as the nursery of democracy. Nursery, I mean, nursery छोटे plant samplings बढ़ाऊचे. The saplings are छोटे चारा गच्छ हम जिंदी बढ़ाऊचे nursery. Secondly, Panchayat Raj institutions shall act as a nursery of democracy. It shall grow. Democracy shall grow from these institutions. Because these institutions can provide a viable training ground for the elected persons to move to the higher levels of representation. Apna political sociology, political recruitment, it helps in recruiting people. By participating, by learning from the small areas, I mean participation in the lowest level of democracy, they shall gradually go higher up to represent the larger levels, like the state legislatures, then the union legislature, like that. So it is virtually, it serves as a nursery, as a ground of political recruitment. Then it is also a ground for the citizens, common citizens, for political education. Citizens' knowledge and experience through the political machinery which is operating at the grassroots level. By participating in the local elections. Then also, PRIs, they achieve through these planned targets, achievements, even a planning scheme, targets are fixed. And this Panchayat Raj system, it has given the rural people an opportunity which they had not before. Agru, British Raj Samare, local administration by decision making the semanku etata sujog milunathala participate kariyaku, which Panchayat Raj institution could provide. So they get not only political education, but also the people have the power to solve their own problems, to do things by themselves. Farmers, for example, through panchayats or panchayat samitis, assess their own requirement, initiatives, and also they have the opportunity to formulate their own plans and to implement it. So, Panchayat Raj institution, that is why, provides a very promising means for what? For democratization of the planning. Very successfully, through the Panchayat Raj institutions, planning process can be democratized. Panchayats, they discharge their responsibilities in connection with the 5-year plan very efficiently, effectively. Instructions are issued to the Gram Panchayats to prepare and plan on the basis of their own needs and their own resources. ସେମାନଙ୍କ ନିଜର ନିଡ୍ ଆଉ ରିସୋର୍ସକୁ ନେଇକି ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ପ୍ଲାନ୍ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ମଧ୍ୟ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦେଶ ଦିଆଗଲା. For example, the second 5-year plan is thus a combination of the village level plans after the necessary scrutiny at the block districts and also in the state levels. So achieving the plan targets, it became possible through these Panchayat Raj institutions. Regarding the structure, we have already several times referred to this, like Gram Panchayats, Panchayat Samitis, and Jilla Parishad, जोटा कि 3टा level रे operate करुछन्ति. Most of us, know about this functioning of this particular 3 levels, like the lowest level is the Gram Panchayat, and the Panchayat is the executive committee of Gram Sabha. It is known by a variety of names. विभिन्न स्टेट रे विभिन्न प्रकार तक नामित कराइछि. The members of the panchayats are called panch. They are elected by the Gram Sabha by secret ballot. The panchayat is looked up as the instrument of execution of the community development programs. And efficient and regular secretarial assistance also should be there. Roles and procedures should be simple. Cooperation from revenue and police agencies must be ensured. Cooperation of government departments is needed. Gram Sabha should be active. Education among the people need to be stepped up. So the state government also may call for necessary reports and records. And also there is sufficient measure the state government can also exercise its control. Even though too much of exercise is also criticized and all that, as we have pointed out. तापर इंटरमीडिएट टा जस्ट मिडिल टायर टा होची पंचायत समिति जोटा कि ब्लॉक लेवल ऑपरेट करूची. The panchayat samiti virtually is the pivotal level because most of the schemes of rural development, they are being operated in this level. It is the principal executive body in all states, excepting few states like Gujarat and Maharashtra, because at this level, the community development programs are implemented. Panchayat Samiti scrutinizes budgets of the panchayats of the area. Kaରଣ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପଞ୍ଚାୟତ ଗୋଟେ ପଞ୍ଚାୟତ ସମିତି ଅଣ୍ଡରରେ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପଞ୍ଚାୟତ ବି ରହୁଛନ୍ତି. They can scrutinize their budgets under its control, make suggestions. Functions may be classified like provision of the civic amenities and also fulfillment of the development activities. What is civic activity? What is developmental functions? Civic amenities गुड़ाक provide करिवे and also fulfilling the development functions. This can Panchayat Samiti also can appoint different committees and all that. Then the highest tier of this rural development is Jilla Parishad. And in this intermediate level also, the official, there is a parallel of officialdom like the block level officers being headed by the BDOs and all that, block development officer. Then also, there are many other officers operating in this panchayat level like BEOs, block level education officers, industry officers, agriculture officers. And with the cooperation of this executive or the administrative officials, the political executive constituted by the chairman of the Panchayat Samiti and all the members, they shall function with coordination. And the top level is called Jilla Parishad. It constitutes the apex of the Panchayat Raj system. Panchayat system three tier rahila, sabutar upar star rahila district Jilla Parishad, district councils. And it is a corporate body. Membership of Jilla Parishad has been designated in such a way as to link it with the intermediate tiers of the PR. It is Panchayat Samiti and Jilla Parishad is an official rather than a popular body because of its ex officio and co-opted members. Most of the members are co-opted and also ex officio. From state to state, the membership varies. The number of members, like it may vary from 40 to 60. Urban local governments in the districts must be represented in the Jilla Parishad to enable it to view and function in a comprehensive and meaningful manner. In most of the states, Jilla Parishads, they have been assigned with execution, the executive authorities, particularly in those planning and development and design, to be the strongest tier of the PRIs. District collector for the BDOs and other block level officers are there, the official part. In the district level also, the district collector and other district level officers, they also assist the political executive in order to carry out the function smoothly. Of course, as we have already discussed several times, that there are many problems in the functioning and all that. And there are functional representation in various tiers. For example, at the Gram Panchayat level, administrative functions include preparation of annual plans for the development of the village panchayats, preparation of annual budget, mobilizing relief in natural calamities, removal of encroachment on public properties, organizing voluntary labor and contribution of the community works, then maintenance of statistics of villages, than any other functions entrusted by the Panchayat Samitis. Then what are the block level functions? जोटा कि Panchayat Samiti level रे होउछ, like some of the functions like trusts and social education, village defense course, publicity and information, and social activities concerning agriculture, animal husbandry, fisheries, social farm and forestry. Among the maintenance of functions, the market, hair maintenance, health, family welfare, sanitation, and medical and cultural activities. So the Jilla Parishad level are the functions which are assigned. The major responsibility the of the general administrative function is overall supervision, coordination and consolidation, integration and implementation of development schemes at the block and district levels, preparation of plans for economic and development and social justice of the entire district, and securing the execution of plans, projects, schemes, or other Panchayat Samiti works that are commonly found in almost all the states. Then regarding very briefly, I must tell that what is the present setup in the national level. I'm the state level বিভিন্ন structure विषय और पे बहुत जान लेनी. New Ministry of Panchayat Raj was created with the effect from 27th May 2004. national level रे गोटे मिनिस्ट्री गठन करागला दार नाम होची मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ पंचायत राज 2004 27th May. And as per the amended allocation of business rules, all matters relating to Panchayat Raj and Panchayat Raj institutions will be looked after by this newly created ministry. And this ministry will be responsible for the work of advocacy for and monitoring of the implementation of the Constitution. Constitution of what? Sorry, Constitution Amendment Act, 73rd Amendment Act. आमे ये जो 73rd Amendment Act विषय सब पढ़िले तार सक्सेसफुल इम्प्लीमेंटेशन टाको ओवरसी करिबा देखिबा this new Ministry of Panchayat Raj रोच काम, which is formed in 2004. Amendment Act has been passed from 1992. But all along these years, how this particular act has been implemented, this is to be supervised and analyzed by this ministry. And states and union territories administrations at present are at varying degree of the implementation of the said acts. So the new ministry of this Panchayat Raj, it attaches great importance to the capacity building of the elected representatives and officials of the Panchayat Raj institutions, as well as the functionaries who are involved in this rural development programs. Ministry also funds research activities, workshops and seminars for development of panchayats. Then also it has the national level Ministry of Panchayat Raj Rahila, state government level madhya there are direct responsibility for the administration of the rural development. And during the late 1960s, state level coordination and review committees were set up in all the states. The Union Ministry of Rural Development, it had prescribed that programs like Integrated Rural Development Program, the National Rural Employment Programs, NREP, then also RLEGP, various rural development programs, they have been implemented and they have been prescribed by the Union Ministry of Rural Development. So consequently, at the state level, initially there was officers of the development commissioners who were in charge of all the developmental works and the developmental projects which are to be implemented under this particular scheme. Now, in most of the cases, either the Department of Planning or the Department of Rural Development is responsible for policy, planning, and implementation. This is the more or less one administrative structure in the state level. Then also administrative setup at the district levels. District in India, has been the basic unit of administration. That is why, in development administration, the role of collectors are very important. Oneko schemes, it may be union government schemes or the state government schemes, they are implemented at this particular level. So district administration is most important. That is why the role of collector, that is why in the career of a bureaucrat, this particular time, that is during the time of collectorship, their efficiency is very much examined. That to what extent they are successful in implementing these programs. Significant changes were also introduced at the district level during fourth plan period, that is 1969 to 74. When small farmers development agencies, marginal farmers and agricultural laborers development agencies, they were set up on the recommendations of the All India Rural Credit Review Committee. And an autonomous agency was also registered under the Registration of Societies Act 1860, which was established at the district level. And its job is to implement these schemes, these programs like SFDA or Marginal Farmers Agricultural Laborers Development Agency, that is MFALA and all that. And there is also a governing body. So, in a nutshell, we have given this idea that how in various levels like the center, the state and the district level, this is actually functioning. After you go through the texts, you can have a detailed idea. But it can be told that India is on the threshold of a historic transition. The transition is from the centralized political power to the grassroots, with all the states completing the process of enacting the fresh legislation, that is the Acts, 73rd Amendment Act and 74th Amendment Act. So, the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act is not applicable actually in some of the states and certain scheduled areas of the country. But mere legislative enactment do not ensure effectiveness. And viability of the Panchayat Raj institutions in the states. What is most important is their operationalization. How to make the administrative setup more effective and efficient so that the fruits of this Amendment Act or the desired goals of the 73rd Amendment Act, it can percolate and reach the people. Then also, briefly, this in the same pattern, we can touch upon the organizational structure of the urban local bodies. I mean, the rural side, तीन structure देखिले, Gram Panchayat, Panchayat Samiti, district level, that is Jilla Parishad. Exactly, organizational structures of the urban local bodies are there. You know, the concept of local self-government is based on assumption that there are certain basic human needs. And those human needs can be fulfilled by a government to which the individuals and the local communities have direct access. So, another important facet is that the people must have direct access to the government, and that is possible through this system. You know, on the urban side, there are also equally these grassroots institutions which include municipal corporations, then municipalities, and also notified area councils. And according to 1991 census, in order to be called urban area, which should be named as urban area. Usually, Janagana Samare Sitaku define Karaja. 1991 census Koji, all statutory towns, that is all places with a corporation, municipality and notified area council town or town area committees and cantonments. Then all other places which meet the following criteria. And what are those criteria? Minimum population of 5,000. You know, this was the study observation of 1991 census. There are lot many changes also in this criteria. 75% of the male working population engaged in non-agricultural activity. A density of population of at least 400 per square kilometer. You know, these are the criteria being earmarked in the 1991 census, which has undergone a lot many changes. And you know, British regime samare madhya, the pre-independence era, the history of local self-government can be divided into certain periods up to 1882, then 1882 to 1919, from 1919 to 1935, then 1935 to 1947. This is the time during the British administration. And you know, post-independence, the periods can be 1947 to 1985. That's the first phase. Because with the advent of independence, it opened up a new chapter in the socio-economic reforms embodied in the directive principle of the state policy. That is part 4 implementation. And with the establishment of the democratic setup, the basic emphasis of the government changed from the maintenance of law and order to promotion of welfare of the community. And immediately after independence, our nature of the state has undergone a change from the police state to welfare state. That is why directive principle of state policy has assumed relative importance. Most of the provisions were included in that. Local administration provision chapter 4 diya jayଥିଲା. So During this past phase, naturally, when state has assumed the welfare dimension, just it is not confined with the function of law and order, maintenance of law and order, but also promoting the social and economic status of the people, providing social and economic benefit, social and economic security to the people has also become important. Then second phase, 1985 to 1992, এই phase problems of the urban areas as well as the structure and composition of the municipal bodies and their function and duties, their resources were the subjects of discussion during this phase. And the basic questions, as we have already told you, how to make administration more close to the people, how to make the people participate in the administration, how can they be sensitized. Then the third phase is 1992 onwards. The 74th amendment to the constitution is the landmark. ତେଣୁ 1992 ମସିହା ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟାୟଟା ବେଶୀ ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ହେଲା କାରଣ 1992 ରେ ହିଁ 74th amendment act was passed, that is urban development, this revamping the local body self government in urban areas. And this particular act, that is 74th amendment act, contains two types of provisions, mandatory as well as discretionary. Mandatory provisions were those which are compulsory to be adopted throughout the country. ଏବଂ କୋଉଡାକ mandatory provision ରେ ଯାଉଛି, uniform structuring, definite term stability, reservation of seats for the different segments of the society, constituting the ward committees, district planning and metropolitan planning committee, finance committee, election commission, ଏଗୁଡାକ ସବୁ mandatory function ଭିତରେ ଆସୁଛି. And the local government, which is a state subject, the discretionary provisions are left to the states to enact according to their needs and local situations. ଆମର ଯୋଉ ତିନିଟାକୁ list ହେଇଛି, union list, state list and concurrent, local self government has been given to it has been placed in the state list. ତାର ଅର୍ଥ state ମାନଙ୍କୁ sufficient scope ଦିଆଗଲା ଯେ ସେମାନେ ତାଙ୍କର necessary arrangement କରିବେ depending on their own financial stability and also depending on their local needs. So that particular autonomy has been granted to the states. And also, this 74th Amendment Act also facilities have been provided the democratic decentralization and stability to urban local units, and which is aimed to accomplish the objectives of being or making administration closer to the people. That is most important. And the Ministry of Urban Development is the apex body. Government of India. The Ministry of Panchayat Raj is rural development apex body. Likewise, the Ministry of Urban Development is the apex authority of Government of India. At the national level, it shall formulate the policies, sponsors and support programs, then also coordinate the activities of various central ministries. এবং urban development को କିଛି କିଛି ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ subjects ମଧ୍ୟ ଦିଆଗଲା. Like the constitution and powers of the municipal corporations, excluding the municipal corporation of Delhi, then municipalities, excluding the New Delhi municipal committees and other local self-government administrations. Then other subjects are like water supply, then the subject like Central Council of Local Self-Government, then matters of the Housing and Urban Development Corporation relating to urban infrastructure, collection of the information with regard to the urban local government in the states, urban community development, improvement of trusts, training of municipal government personnel, All India Mayors Conference, like that. So, local self-government implies the management of the local affairs such as water supply, drainage, primary education. These are very easy to understand, almost similar to the arrangements on the rural side. These provisions have been made. Sethi tankar apex department was the Ministry of Panchayati Raj, where in the urban side it is the Ministry of Urban Development. So, we have a brief discussion on the constitution of the first is the municipal corporations, then also constitution of the municipalities, and also the notified area councils, or in some states it's called the notified area committees also, and their functions and powers, they have been also earmarked. What are then overall भाବରେ ଆମେ କହିବାକୁ ଗଲେ, I think I should end up with 4-5 minutes because it's time. There are certain basics of local governance. The principle of democracy in structure. Structurally, there must be one element of democracy. It means that the members of these urban bodies should be from amongst the elected representatives by the selected people, those who are having the necessary qualifications to, or like voting rights and all that. And it believes that the people have enough common sense to make the decisions. Then there is a principle of autonomy in function. Prathama is principle of democracy in structure. The representatives of this particular body must come through the election where the people can have a say. Because public decisions, they are too serious a matter to be left with the non-elected experts. Then principle of autonomy in functioning. Then principle of fraternal feeling. Principle of diversity in preferences. So these are mostly some of the basics of these urban local bodies. The local governance as such. And so far as urban side is concerned, naturally, like the 11th schedule, 12th schedule has been given under Article 243. And all major states in India, they had municipal acts as well as municipal bodies before they came into existence in the present form. With a minute, I can touch upon about this municipal finance. Both 73rd and 74th Amendment Acts provide for State Finance Commission. And Finance Commission, they are provided under Article 243, looking into financial obligation of the urban local bodies. 74th Amendment Act provides for the constitution by every state of a State Finance Commission also, within 1 year of the announcement of this, implementation of this act. And The observation is that in spite of the 74th Amendment, it visualizes the people's participation as one of the main objectives, and the people's actual participation in the municipal affairs of the city is still limited. Then another important domain which we have also taken up in the previous classes and all that, public-private partnership. Private parties also think that to push their projects through municipal authorities is really time consuming and also wasteful. Then professionalism. Still, it is a common percept in the municipal governance that the garbage disposal, making provisions for basic amenities, they do not require any specialization and professionalization. In this way, the municipal authorities were able to change the mindset of the people from the regulatory to the developmental psychology. And it has been the general experience that whenever large scale reforms are carried out, it leads to a little of resistance. A bit of resistance was there. So, for reforming the system, what is required also a political system, political wisdom and political support. So, with this, I end up. The primary objective of evolving so many legislations relating to this local self-government was to give power to the people. And only when this is successful, democracy in general shall be successful. Okay, thank you. It is 7:31. So, if any questions, any slide discussion we can have, or otherwise, we shall wind up. I shall quit the platform. Hello, learners. It's time that we should close now. Hello, dear learners. So I now close up and I am leaving the platform. Thank you. Thank you for your cooperation and participation in this particular discussion on the chapters on local governance. Thank you very much. So should I leave now? Hello? Hello?